It's really case by case, year to year. When we did the big one with Jameson, that was the right, that was the guy, and so that was a little bit more probably pre-planned, obviously because it was such a massive jump. It took a lot more conversation, discussions, and planning to get in position to get him. But even the one, last year, that was more, I think I told you guys, that was more unexpected. Just didn't even think that we would get in a position to be in striking range. And, we had a lot of affinity for TA. And when we got in striking range, which we felt was reasonable, then that's when we made the move. So it just depends, who might be in striking range, who might, so it could be moving back. It could just be, just staying patient. It could be, didn't think that this guy, didn't go up. So, you prepare for everything. So you go through all those scenarios, and then you just kind of got to be ready for anything. Let's call it what the talent level is and how high the talent level is in each draft. And it's also relative to where we're picking. So I don't really go into it as like, man, I got to trade up. But, trading back is just, how many of those players would be available, and, how much less of a player could you be getting, or the players are going to be the same, and it looks like the more rational thing to get more assets. So, but it's case by case. Probably a little bit about, what he just asked about, just kind of just staying patient. I think the first couple of years, there was probably a little bit more because of where we were at as a roster. Was like, man, like we need this. Like I told you guys, I think at the time we needed everything. So there was not a position or anything that was like, we just needed really good football players. And so it was much more urgency. We have a lot of really good football players, but I don't think that where we are at a roster now is going to lessen my desire either to want to go get more better football players. But, obviously the more depth that you build, and when the roster is harder to make, sometimes it does say, look, maybe just stay patient. Just see, or maybe just go up and get, the guy you really, really want, and you don't use all those other draft picks, So, but yeah, just kind of seeing the big picture, in terms of not being as anxious because of where we were as a roster. It's not just us acquiring the player. It takes everybody. So, we can identify the talent, but, we have great coaches that, like I've said often, can accelerate development and get the most out of these players. So I think it's more, I take pride in this, that we have the right people in our building, just from a football leadership perspective, and we're all working as one. We're all on the same page. We pretty much see things the same, and we know where we want to get. So I take more pride in that, of just having the right people, because it is a process. It is a lot of work that's involved, and it's a lot of detail, and it's a lot that doesn't get out, to the public, that, it takes everybody. So I'm the most proud of who we have in our building and who we're working with on a regular basis, because it really doesn't happen if you don't have everyone. It got to be the right project, it got to be the right developmental upside guy that might not be ready to go. Because there's a ton of them in every draft. And, Manu was just one of those guys that was like, man, like was really appealing. And we had, a lot of love for it in the process, and kind of just, we were in position to take him. But, look, Derek Barnes was developmental when we took him, and, was kind of still learning how to play the linebacker position and all that kind of stuff. So it all goes back down to the right intangibles and who we feel is a good football player. But, I totally understand. It's just that I think in the past, we didn't really, like when we first started, in 21, we didn't have as much talent on the roster at the time, and all those young guys had to play. And then we were fortunate enough to have all those additional picks after the golf trade that, and I thought that we made good use of those picks where those guys were really, really good players that were like immediate impact. So we don't really go into it like, man, we got to get like high floor ready to go, but the ceiling might be a little bit lower, or, we're just going to take just developmental guys. It's just, there's no problem taking a developmental guy. Again, like I said, some of these guys, man, you could take a late round pick and, it's got to be the right guy or it's going to be hard to make the roster. Let's take care of the main thing first and, just see if we can get just the best football players for us first, and then we'll deal with what we have to do later. But I'd rather have a surplus of good football players that we really, really like, and, increase great problems to have. And that might increase great problems to have, but I'd rather have those great problems instead of not having a great problem to have. No, we haven't had any discussions since then. And, I think we kind of left it as, that, his agent would kind of let us know if something was, going on, or, if anything's had changed or if we had any updates. So, but no, we haven't had any discussions since the annual meetings. And this is where I not get annoyed, but this is why I sometimes don't understand the whole need thing, because when each season ends, it's going to be something else. Like, another player's contract's going to end. Another player, unfortunately, might be coming off an injury. And, it's going to be something different every single offseason. So if you're trying to chase what happened last season of, oh, man, this guy's contract, and, if you're trying to chase, well, this guy got an injury, you're just kind of getting into a cycle that I think is a little bit dangerous to get into. So that's why I've been more of a, just get the best player, because even, look, we loved Rakestraw, and unfortunately he just wasn't as healthy, but so he wasn't able to help as much last year. But, we're real excited and looking forward to what he's going to be able to bring this year. So there is just, and I said before, there's just a level of patience that you just have to play. But when you start chasing need, it's well, that need might make sense for right now at this time. But, what we make these picks for future investments. And I know we live in a society that everything is right now, boom, right now. And I understand it too, just from, when a player gets drafted and so much, fascination is made about the draft, and, people are excited about it. People want to see it right now. And, they don't want to wait and be patient, but there's just patience. I mean, it's no different than when we made that massive jump to get Jameson Williams. He was coming off his injury. We knew maybe he could play a little bit late in the season, but weren't planning on it. So yeah, I just got to play the patient. But I'm just, I think you can get trouble chasing needs sometimes, and then you're dependent on a rookie that you do the best you can, but nobody has a crystal ball. So it could be a tough world to live in. Yeah, I think it's some good players, at that position. I won't get into specifics or details of the actual players, but I know some will go before our pick, some might be available at our pick, and just like previous questions that I fielded, it might be opportunity to trade back, and then that position is there. But yeah, there's some good football players there. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's kind of like, we talk about corner, you really can't never have enough of them. And, obviously receiver, look, now the only thing about receiver is that I always felt like receiver is probably one of the more voluminous positions in each draft. So it's probably more of those guys, even like veteran free agents that are available after the draft as well. But yeah, I mean, just to add one, just continue to add youth We're happy with the guys that we have, very happy with the guys we have. But obviously, it'd be great to get younger. I would think most people have a chart. We have a chart, but I do think it's probably more of your philosophy of how you use the chart. Is that I've spoken with teams during the draft, and they're like the minuscule points is off, and it's like, come on, man, give me a break. And but that's their philosophy, where we're kind of like it's in the range, and this is the player that we want. This is the deal we want to do, and then we do it. So everybody has them. There's multiple charts that exist as well, but I just think what your philosophy is in terms of the usage of it. Why is it so, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you a question. Well, let me get your question out the way. What I won't do is what I've been saying that I won't do, that I know you guys get frustrated with me not doing, is looking at our depth charts, like names, black and white names, but no football being played or anything, looking at a depth charts and seeing a position and then saying, man, you got to get that position, but a player has to play that position. And so that's why I've always been saying, look, we want to get good players, because if you get a guy that can play a position and say, look, like, what was the question that you asked, Brad? The 50th time you asked pass rushers, well, you can draft a pass rusher every round. You could. It's easy. That's just like if a coach told me, man, we want a guy that's 6'4", 250. If we got a guy 6'4", 250, that's easy. You want a guy 6'4", 250? Yeah. I don't know if he's a good football player, but he'll be 6'4", 250. Where the same as, yeah, you can draft a defensive end. If the player playing defensive end is not what we feel is going to be the right guy to really contribute to our football team, then what are you guys going to write about that player? You guys, man, that's not working. I didn't. Well, so we're not going to reach on players just to fill a position. So that's what we won't do. But it's just, you said, you're always trying to figure out what we're going to do. I don't when a movie comes out, right? I don't understand. When you go to see a movie, you don't know you've never seen the movie. That's the excitement. And so you're fine just watching the movie. And it is, whether the movie's good or bad, and then you can do that. But I don't understand why people can't just watch the draft. And it's like, all right, I don't know what's going to happen, but watch the draft and get your popcorn ready and enjoy it. You know what I mean? It's a lot more in depth and a lot harder than some people may think. And I do think it's case by case. I in terms of character evaluation, I wish it was as easy as seeing a headline. If that was that, it was that, and that was, but there's so much more depth and detail and research that's involved. It's literally, I tell our scouts, in terms of character, it's year round. It's a house you got to build year round, and it leads all the way up till the draft, really. So but I do think I've always say it's case by case. Everything that you may read may not be what actually happened, and that's the actual details of it, or whatever the case is. But that's just it's case by case, but it's a lot of depth. It's a lot of research. I don't want to get into specifics too much in terms of our process, but it goes so much further than what's available in the news. Look, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Les goes that route. Back when I was there, we were doing them, but just knowing Les, I'm not surprised that he, doesn't do them anymore. But I do think you still get some value there in terms of, it gets put out in the media, and it's like, oh, well, you brought this player. But those players are brought in for so many different reasons It's, it could be just the makeup. It could be, how well they retain football. It could be just the personality, how well they're going to fit in the locker room, because there are human beings, man. And, there's human beings that you're going to have to work with. So it goes past just, what their job is on the football on the football field. And so, and then it's human beings that you have to really invest in, and they're really young kids, that may need some growing up or development here or there. So they come from all different backgrounds. So it's another opportunity to kind of just dig deeper into the human being besides just the 15 minutes at the combine. But obviously our scouts, that's what I feel great about, is that our scouts do such a great job with that stuff, is that, by the time we get to the combine, it's pretty much, we kind of know what it is, but it's good to feel it too. Yeah, again, it has to be the right guy. And, even if it was like, it was the right guy at that specific position that we really wanted. Just because you might want it doesn't mean that you can get up there and get them. There's been previous years where, I know we did the Jameson Williams trade that was pretty far up there from where we were at. That hasn't been the only year that we've attempted to do that, not at that specific position, but just for a player. And it takes two people to do a trade. And, if there's some teams that, just don't want to go that far back. And so it takes two. So it's hard to say, like, man, like, we should do this. And even if we wanted to, there's no telling that the other team's willing to go back.